Yo, what's going on, guys? It is time for another reaction video, and today I'm going to be reacting to 10 foods that were invented for another purpose. Curious to see what some of these foods are and what the original purpose was of them. So y'all go comment below some guesses before we jump into it and what you think some of them might be, and let's see if you can guess anything on the list.
Hello everyone. Have you ever thought about how lucky we all are? We all live in a blessed time where the shelves in supermarkets are full of food, and everyone, literally everyone, can easily find a treat for their taste. Few people know, however, that many famous and popular products hide a lot of secrets. And no, we're not necessarily talking about their ingredients. We mean why and for whom they were originally created. For example, people still talk about the creation of Franco-Americans' canned SpaghettiOs, a popular product in the 1980s. Who decided to can a portion of cooked pasta? And what about Coca-Cola's alcohol issues, healing meat steaks, or flakes that make everyone kinder? Can't wait to find out? Then let's get it on. 7-Up. It's a little hard to believe, but the first product we're going to talk about today will celebrate its anniversary in just 9 years. In 1929, it will be 100 years since it was first prepared. The Howdy Corporation, founded by Charles Liper Grigg in 1920, originally specialized in the production of orange-flavored drinks. However, there was already a popular orange soda on the market, so he had to come up with something new to increase sales. Thus, in 1929, Grigg thought of creating a refreshing drink that would taste like lemon and lime. The resulting product was unlike any other drink and quickly gained popularity. However, at that time, almost 100 years ago, it was not called 7-Up, but bib label lithiated lemon lime soda, and it only got its current name by 1936, and it's time you learned about its main secret. The drink was wildly popular, not just because of its unusual.
So does that mean 7-Up came out before Sprite? And if so, it's interesting that Sprite became so much more famous than 7-Up. I guess that goes back to that battle of Coke versus Pepsi, and Coke just having a stronger brand recognition.
Taste. The fact is that originally 7-Up contained lithium citrate. Today, this mood stabilizer is used by doctors to treat manic states and bipolar disorder. Previously, there was a popular belief that lithium dissolves uric acid, which causes a huge number of diseases. For this reason, lithium citrate was a popular additive. Well, 7-Up, or rather its predecessor, was sort of a medicinal drink. It wasn't until 1948 that the substance was removed from the beverage, after its use was banned in the US. Graham crackers.
So they didn't explain where the actual name 7-Up came from, though, huh? They just said that it changed, but they didn't say what it originated from. So I wonder where the actual name originated from.
The story of how this product was invented is very interesting. Graham crackers are a delicious treat which can be used to make pie crusts, consumed in the original form, or as s'mores with chocolate and marshmallow. Either way, it's a sweet and not very healthy treat. In the past, however, it used to be very different. The Reverend Sylvester Graham was responsible for the creation of the Graham crackers.
That's interesting. My grandfather, his last name was Graham, so Graham is in my family, and we used to have a sign on their porch that said the Graham cracker box. Only now to discover that actually Graham crackers are named after a guy with the last name of Graham. That's kind of funny. That's interesting.
The Reverend Sylvester Graham was responsible for the creation of the Graham crackers. He was famous for sticking to strict limits in his food. The man, who lived in the early 19th century, believed that in order to stay healthy, people must stop enjoying their food. His diet was vegetarian and consisted mainly of bread made from coarse ground flour. As he preached actively, Graham built up a whole bunch of supporters, and it was for these people that Graham flour and then Graham crackers were invented. Despite the fact that the Reverend himself didn't create the crackers and had nothing to do with their production, the snack still bears his name.
I eat a honey-made Graham from Nabisco.
Since the beginning of mass production in 1898, the recipe has been modified repeatedly, but in our opinion, this is only for the best. Coca-Cola. The most popular non-alcoholic drink in the world has more secrets than you think. It is generally believed that Coca-Cola was created on May the 8th, 1886. However, this is only true if we're talking about the classic version of the drink. In fact, Coke's history started even earlier, around 1863. It was then that the French alchemist Angelo Mariani developed the recipe for coca wine. This alcoholic beverage was created from coca leaves and was extremely popular. Even famous personalities such as Jules Verne, Alexander Dumas, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle were fond of it. At the same time, there was a pharmacist named John Ste Pemberton.
There's a show on, I think it's the History Channel or the Food Network, I can't remember which, where they go in depth on the history of certain things like this. And the story of Coca-Cola is a really interesting one, as well as cereal and crackers, which I know that one of the ones coming up is cornflakes, and I saw the whole story on that. But I knew quite a bit about Coca-Cola already, and that they're more of a licensor than a creator, meaning that the drinks are made locally wherever they're distributed, right? So the distributors hold the, I don't know how to explain it, but basically, like, Coca-Cola is not the one that's bottling and selling the Coca-Cola. They're selling the rights to bottle the Coca-Cola. And they have their recipe that is then added to water to make Coca-Cola. So yeah, and I'm probably saying that a little bit off, but it's kind of like how McDonald's is, you know, quote unquote, a real estate company, because they own the land that every McDonald's sits on, and they lease the land back to the franchise owner. So even though you're a franchisee of a McDonald's and you own the McDonald's, you don't own the land that it sits on. McDonald's owns the land that it sits on. So you forever pay them a lease or rent to have your own McDonald's on their land. So you're stuck under them no matter what. And then that's, you know, on top of all the other franchising fees and everything else that you have to give them. So that's why they say, you know, McDonald's is a real estate company more than it is a food company. Just as Coca-Cola is more of licensing their product to be bottled than creating the product themselves. Let's see if they mention some of that.
Who lived in America. He was involved in the Civil War, during which he became a morphine addict. In an attempt to find a cure for it, he came across information about coca wine. Pemberton came up with the idea of creating his own version of the magic beverage, and that's how Pemberton's French wine coca appeared. The product was marketed as a cure-all for many diseases: nervous disorders, physical and mental exhaustion, constipation, headaches, nervous breakdown, impotence, and of course, morphine addiction. It was miraculous. Soon, however, the recipe had to be changed. The temperance movement in 1886 led to the appearance of a non-alcoholic version. However, before becoming the drink that we all know and love, Coca-Cola went through a lot of transformations. After all, it was originally patented as a cure for nerve disorders. Cornflakes. Oddly enough, this simple and delicious breakfast is related to Reverend Graham, the one we mentioned before. Cornflakes were distributed under the brand Kellogg's Cornflakes and marketed as part of Graham's diet. According to the creators' beliefs, they had the ability to reduce indigestion and even fix morally destructive behavior. It all started in the late 19th.
The whole morally destructive behavior, I found this one out some years ago as well. There is a whole crazy, like, side story, backstory on Kellogg's and morality. I'll just leave it there. You go Google it. You go look it up and see what you can learn about Kellogg's and morality. And let's see if they touch on it more, if that's all they're going to say about it. But you can go down that rabbit hole on your own.
Century. Graham's vegetarian movement was taking over the country, and his followers were actively experimenting with different kinds of grains. The idea was straightforward then: creating new, more affordable and cheaper food that would be aligned with the Reverend's commandments. Cornflakes, however, were not the result of trial and error. To be honest, it was a completely accidental invention. On May the 31st, 1895, John Harvey Kellogg and his younger brother Will Keith Kellogg were working with wheat. The men boiled the grains, left them to cool and women went to the health resort where they worked as caretakers. When the men returned, they found that the wheat had turned hard. Since the brothers didn't have much money, they didn't throw it away. The men rolled it out, hoping to get some kind of dough sheet. To their greatest surprise, the result was some delicate flakes. The brothers then toasted them, fed their patients, and very soon the new dish became popular in the sanitarium. After experimenting with other grains, the Kellogg brothers eventually realized that corn was the best option. In 1907, the product was introduced to the general public. However, in order to make cornflakes appeal to everyone, they decided to sweeten them, and that's how the popular breakfast came into being. Dr. Pepper. This is the third soda on our list, but what...
It's my favorite soda. You guys probably figured that out because I'm constantly drinking these in my videos. Dr. Pepper needs to sponsor me. Come on, Dr. Pepper. I'm drinking you in hundreds of videos at this point.
can we do if many popular drinks were originally created not only to quench your thirst? Despite the fact that Coca-Cola is still one of the most popular drinks in the world, Dr. Pepper appeared at about the same time. By the way, the protagonist of this story is also a pharmacist, Charles Alderton, a resident of Waco, Texas. When he invented his...
You said Waco, Texas, which I could understand because of the way it's spelled, but it's actually pronounced Waco. Waco, Texas, not Waco. And I believe Dr. Pepper is based out of Grapevine, Texas. I might be wrong on that. Let's find out.
Also a pharmacist, Charles Alderton, a resident of Waco, Texas. When he invented his drink in 1885, he decided to sell it in pharmacies as a medicine. He made some very serious medical claims in the very first adverts. According to him, Dr. Pepper could improve digestion, give you strength, make people more energetic and active. It sounded like a nice tonic.
The idea of it improving your digestion is probably because one of the 23 ingredients inside of Dr. Pepper is prunes or prune juice, and prunes are a laxative.
Drink. Nothing of it was true, of course. However, because of the large amount of sugar in the drink, people did feel a small rush of energy. Salisbury steak. If you come across a Salisbury steak in the supermarket, you should know that once upon a time it was widely considered a cure for many diseases. The creator of this delicious dish is believed to be a...
I love how back in the 1800s, early 1900s, I guess, anything was a cure-all for anything that you wanted to say that it was a cure-all for, and people would just gullible and just believe it. Like, they're like, oh, it'll cure all those things? All right. Nobody's tested it or proven it, but okay, I believe you. At different times, though. There were no internet, and there was no, there weren't as many boards over, food boards and things like that there are today. But I do find it kind of comical how many of these things were created as, some form of a medicinal use.
American physician James Salisbury. During the US Civil War, he worked as a military doctor. That's when he found out that diarrhea, which affected soldiers on a massive scale, could be stopped with a special diet: coffee, lean chopped beefsteak, and nothing else. A little later, he became fond of healthy foods and strict diets, but his idea of healthy was very peculiar. Salisbury believed that people are predators, and that's why we have fangs. The doctor also believed that vegetables and food containing starch were the cause of most diseases, and that's how he got the idea for a Salisbury steak. It's minced beef seasoned with onions and spices. The resulting steak is roasted or boiled and served with brown sauce. Since 1888, Salisbury has
So it's essentially a meat patty. If it's ground beef or minced beef that's formed into the shape that it is, it's basically a meat patty. Throw it on a bun and you got a burger.
Actively promoted this dish as a path to health and longevity. He suggested eating it 3 times a day with plenty of water to cleanse the digestive system. Goo-goo clusters. There was a terrible period in US history known as the Great Depression. In 1929, the stock market collapsed, which led to an economic crisis. And so, like dominoes, one after another, the consequences began to affect companies and then ordinary people. The unemployment rate jumped from 3 to 25%. Another disaster was a drought that destroyed many crops all over the country. People who had jobs were considered lucky, but even they didn't always have enough money to feed themselves. Why are we telling you all this though? Well, because Goo-Goo Cluster cookies are an important part of this story. In the 20s and 30s,
I don't know if Goo-Goo is a particular brand. I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of them. They look kind of like a praline or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off, but I've never heard of Goo Goo clusters ever.
They only cost a nickel and were actively promoted as a nutritious, high-calorie lunch. Since the working class was constantly undernourished, Goo Goo Cluster were indeed very valuable. These treats were delicious and relatively inexpensive. Chewing gum. Up to the 1760s, people actively used various resins as gum, but we wanted to talk about the chewing gum we consume today. It all started when Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna fled to New York, taking a large number of chicle with him. Chicle is a natural gum harvested from Mesoamerican trees. The general sold the chicle to New York inventor Thomas Adams.
So I wonder if that's where the name chicle comes from in Spanish. That's if you ever go from Texas to Mexico and you cross the border. I don't know if it's still like this because I haven't been in forever. But there's usually kids trying to sell you chicle, which is like little tiny square pieces of gum, and usually like 4 or 5 to a pack. And they sell them to you really cheap, and they'll follow you everywhere they're chicle, trying to sell you some chewing gum.
He tried to use it to create a replacement for rubber, but none of his attempts were successful. Then Adams remembered the general's habit of chewing chicle and tried to make a chewing gum out of it. The first batch of chewing gum was sent to the stores in 1871 and surprisingly sold out almost immediately. Thomas Adams continued manufacturing it, learned how to add flavors, and so gradually his chewing gum conquered the world. Brandy. The history of this strong drink is closely linked to the history of wine. The fact is that in the 17th century, merchants didn't transport wine in the most usual way. Before transportation, excess water was removed from the drink. Needless to say, it reduced in volume. This was a great idea because, first of all, it was easier to transport it, and secondly, trade taxes were reduced. It was very easy to return the wine to its original state. You just had to add the same amount of water. Traders did this for quite a long time, until at one moment something went wrong, so to say. Someone drank the concentrated wine and realized that after being stored in a wooden barrel, it tasted much better than wine. That's basically how brandy was created.
I never knew that. That's kind of interesting. Very interesting, actually. So basically, you could take a brandy and turn it into wine if you wanted, just by adding water to it. Does that still hold true today? I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't, based on the way it was done back then. But if it's being stored in the wood, then it's probably got more of a smoky flavor to it, or woody flavor. I don't know. If you are a wine or brandy connoisseur and you know the answer to that, let me know in the comments. Can you mix brandy with water today and have essentially wine?
Since then, grape wine has been distilled not for transportation, but to produce this spirit. However, brandy has another chapter in its story as well. It was first produced in France in 1313. However, it was used exclusively as a cure. Doctors called it the water of life. Cheese puffs. The last product we're going to talk about today is cheese puffs. Turns out they also appeared by accident. Strange as it may seem, it all started at an animal feed factory in the 1930s. Corn kernels were actively ground and flaked here using large industrial machines. One day, Edward Wilson noticed something strange. The waste corn powder blew up from the heat, turning into unusual puffs. After some experiments, he managed to create a snack, and it wasn't actually that hard. He only had to add spices.
It's not easy being cheesy.
That's crazy. So a mistake with a tractor led to cheese puffs, Cheetos as we know them.
Psst, dude, are you looking for new technologies and great gadgets? Are your thoughts focused on the future? Do you love huge vehicles and can't imagine your life without robots around you? Then visit TechZone.
Okay, I guess this is just a promo at the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed that video, go check out this channel. It is Mind Warehouse. Looks like they got 8.3 million subscribers, so they're not hurting for subscribers, but go check them out. I'm actually going to subscribe because I enjoyed that video. If you enjoyed this video on my channel, make sure to subscribe. Click that bell so you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. Give it a thumbs up if you really enjoyed it. And I know I asked you for a lot of comments throughout the video, so I'm not going to end with anything additional. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.